This video I'm going to assemble the Gardien Scoot-N-Steer ergonomic rolling garden seat. So the first thing that I'll do is go through and unpackage all the wrapped parts and pull the others from the plastic bags. Then I'll take a look at the assembly instructions, but the first step they give me ends up being wrong in the guide. It also instructs me to install the wheels for the third step, but I didn't like the idea of making it heavier in case I needed to flip things around, so I decided to save the wheel installation for later. And at this point I don't realize that this step is wrong in the guide, so I will bolt this first bar on the way it is shown in the assembly instructions. Then I will flip the frame over and try to put the handle on as it is shown, but it is at too much of an angle to be bolted down flat, so this is where I realize that the instructions may be wrong. I will take a look at them again to confirm that I have it how it is shown, and I do so. I decided to try moving the bar above the galvanized parts the bar attaches to. So after flipping the frame over and removing the bar from the bottom to put on top, the handle fits a little bit better, so I will continue with the assembly. I will attach the handle as shown in the instructions, but in reality there are two different length bolts which it shows as the same length in the diagram. The longer bolt will go towards the back on the bar with the spacer welded to it, and the shorter bolt will go towards the front with washers in between for both bolts. Now after I have the bolts in and the nuts hand tightened on both, I'll tighten the nuts the rest of the way and then test out the handle to see if I have any of the nuts too tight. The next thing I will do is install the accessory tray, so I will place it on the bottom of the frame with the shorter side towards the front with the steering. Then I will take the nuts and washers off the 6 smaller bolts that attach the tray and the basket to the frame. And I'll place a bar on the back to the wider side of the tray and push the first bolt through so I can put on a flat and lock washer before hand tightening the nut on. Then I'll do the same for the second bolt and then flip the frame around so I can attach the shorter side of the accessory tray, which is the same process as I just did for the wider side of the tray. I push the 2 bolts through the frame, the tray, and the bar, and then put on a flat washer, then a lock washer, and finally the nut for each bolt. Now I will flip the frame over and tighten up the 4 bolts using a Phillips head screwdriver and a small crescent wrench to hold the nut in place while I tighten the bolt. Next I will install the basket, which is a lot easier to do with the wheels off because it will sit flat on the ground while I attach it to the frame. So I will push both of the bolts through the small loose bar and then through the basket and holes in the frame so the bolts will clamp the basket to it when tightened up. And I do the same with these bolts as I did with the bolts that hold the tray on. I put a flat washer on first, then the lock washer, and finally hand tighten the nut on. Then I put the crescent wrench on the back nut while I use a Phillips head to tighten both bolts up. Next I will take the nuts and washers off the ends of the long bar and then slide it through the back of the frame. Then I will put the 3 larger washers back on for each side and put the wheels on, making sure that the valve stems to fill the tires are pointing outward. And now I'll put the smaller washer on along with the nut for each side and then flip the frame up so I can put a crescent wrench on the nut for the bottom tire while I tighten up the nut for the tire on top. So with the back tires installed, I'll rotate the frame around so I can install the front tires, which is a lot easier to do. All I need to do is take the nut and small washer off, slide the tire on, and then put the smaller washer and nut back on and tighten the nut up. Then I'll do the same for the other side again, making sure that I have the valve stem pointing out so I can fill the tires back up when they start going flat. Now the last thing that I need to install is the seat, which is a fairly simple process. All I will do is push the 4 larger bolts through the holes in the seat and frame and then put the washers and nuts back on them. Then I'll take my Phillips head screwdriver and crescent wrench to tighten each bolt up, and I can just easily spin the seat around to get to them all. And that will complete the assembly, so I'm ready to try this out by pulling some weeds, which is mostly why I bought it. The first thing that I notice is that it's pretty heavy to carry, so I'll probably try to figure out some type of rope that I can loop around the handle to drag it into place. So I realized right away that this is well worth the money since I didn't last very long when trying to pull weeds before I bought this. The constant bending over from having to move around wears my back out pretty fast now that I'm getting older, and this allows me to move without getting up, so it isn't nearly as painful when I'm done pulling weeds. Going uphill is a little challenging even at this small slope, so I will get up and move the scooter to the top and work my way down now, which makes it much easier to move around. I am very happy with this purchase so far, and I think you will be too if you have a lot of land to maintain. Hopefully this video has helped, and feel free to ask any questions that you still may have in the comments. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe for more quick and on-point videos.